Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Man, has it been a minute. All good reasons why I haven't been on here, and I'll get to some of that a little bit later on. But today we're going to jump in and continue the Grimsly Manor step-by-step tutorial. Today is going to be part 5. We're going to do a little bit more cutting of the foam. I had a great comment from one of you guys on the channel that said, hey, the sidewalk and the driveway, typically they don't run over. There's a small curb or whatever. So we're going to fix that, or at least get it close enough to look a little bit more realistic. Great comment. Thank you. That's why I like your comments. And then we're going to really focus on doing the painting with all of the grays, the dark gray, the rainy day gray, and the white, all sort of a dry brush technique to get everything set up on the foundation, the sidewalk, the curb, and get everything ready to begin putting the road down at some point, start gluing, hot gluing everything down. But before we do any of that, after the painting's done, we got to then come through with some actual grout that we're going to mix up and start putting grout into these big spaces on the concrete block, the wall. So we've got that to look forward to. So that's really what we're going to get into today. It's been over a month since I've done a video. So what has happened? Well, one, it's still fairly early in the season, and we've got a lot of stuff going on. Number one, we took a small vacation, only about a week, but leading up to that, work has been sort of hectic as of late. We took a vacation. We took a small cruise down to the Mexican Riviera, and that was fun. And then we got back, and my wife, who I don't know that you guys have ever seen on video, we're going to introduce her today. And we just had a baby, kinda. And so we're going to introduce you to our baby. So let's get right to that. Okay, so you've heard me talk about my wife, Leslie, forever. She's the love of my life. We've been married for 34 years almost. And so Leslie, come on in. And she's got our new baby. So this baby is Echo. Echo is a little German Shepherd puppy that we got to kind of help, fill our litter with
our pack.
I had to say litter. Our pack with Libby, Justice, and Echo. So this is Echo, and Echo. Leslie decided to name her Echo. Why?
To remind us of our sweet Indy that we lost last August.
Yep.
And to also commemorate or pay tribute to all the dogs we've had over the last 34 years.
Yeah,
and
so
loved and lost.
Yeah, so Echo.
She's a reminder.
She is a reminder, and that's why her name is Echo. It kind of echoes out and back of all the fond memories we had. So perfect name for this little girl. She is so cute. Let's zoom in real close on her. Look how cute, and she's really what she is she is a velociraptor disguised as a puppy dog. So
I think I'm gonna have to put her down.
Yeah, you're gonna have to put her down. So anyway, that is why I have been a little bit preoccupied. We've had her now for a couple of weeks almost, and she's fitting right in. She loves Libby and Justice. She likes tormenting them is actually what she does. And Libby is really good, almost mothering to her. And Justice, you see him laying back in the corner. He's not quite there yet. He loves her only when she runs because he's prey driven and he likes to chase her and basically knock her down with his big paw. But it's funny to watch them here, and our house has been nonstop ever since. So hopefully, understanding that we took a small vacation and understanding that we got a new puppy is some of the reasons I haven't been on here. Family time is the most important time to me, and I know it is to most of you too, so you have to cherish those times. This stuff will always be around. This stuff will always be here when we decide to come back and do it. Always remember where your priorities need to be. So with that, the priority today, however, is to get this thing painted. But before we do that, let me show you why we're going to cut part of the sidewalk. Okay guys, so you can see here I've got everything still sort of laid out. Nothing's happened, trust me when I tell you. I haven't worked on it at all. But I did do some preliminary drawing with a Sharpie And so somebody asked earlier, they're like, hey, it's looking pretty good. However, for a driveway coming down, they normally don't drive over the sidewalk to get, in and out of the driveway. And that is all true. However, I want to try to make this a little more detailed. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, it's not a bad idea. So basically, I'm going to take this to the Proxon. We'll bring the Proxon inside so you can see it. We've got some preliminary lines we're going to follow. And just cut this a little bit with a Proxon. And then discard the middle section of it. Now what that's gonna leave is then really that's kind of what you're gonna be left with as a curve. I've tried to smash it down a little bit more, but it's not really going. I don't wanna really shave any more off, although I might try it on the back side of this with a Proxon. And see if I can flatten that out just a little bit more. We will have some road, the tape, anti-skid tape underneath, and coming out, you'll see it may not blend seamlessly, but it'll be pretty close. And so I think it'll look better that way than it does just kind of sitting like that. I don't think anybody would really care one way or another, but then once you see it without that, you're like, yeah, that's probably the way it should be. So again, great idea, great concept. So with that, let me get the Proxon and let's start making a couple of cuts. Okay, I've got the Proxon in. I just turned the dial down to just over 1 because we're gonna freehand this. Should be fairly simple, just to kind of come through here and get it cut out. I do wanna move some of this stuff though, just to make sure that I don't hit it as I'm moving this stuff through. But it should be fairly simple, and I know this is not incredibly close, but this is a pretty simple cut. So let's turn this on, and here we go. We're gonna come straight at it like this. Just about like that. Okay, that's that piece. And then this piece, same thing, come out through here. And that piece will sit over there. And this is our excess piece that we don't need for right now. Okay, so we're sitting something like this now. Once this is glued down, it does become a little flatter. It's not perfect, but it's okay. I think it'll look fine. And then you can see how when the sidewalk's down, it'll sort of look like that coming into that driveway. And if we step back just a little bit, you kind of see the whole thing. Now, once that's all painted, I think we'll be just fine. We gotta do a little coat of black on that and let that dry. I'll go do that now. I will do that off camera. You've seen me spray paint this before. That's gonna be a real quick squirt of black, flat black water-based spray paint just to cover those. Then we will start painting the rest of that. So let me get those painted and then I'll be right back. Okay, so these pieces are now dry and they've been painted, so you can kind of see how that is coming along there. Those will look nice once they're completely painted and then glued in place. So with that, let's kind of go over the materials that we're gonna need to get this thing painted. This is the same way that I paint every piece of concrete or sidewalk or curb. It's all the same process. Step by step, what we're going to do first is use a craft paint. This is an acrylic craft paint. This is a satin color, satin type sheen, and this is called simply dark gray. So I always start with a dark gray, and it's the thickest of the coats. Still what I would consider somewhat of a dry brush, but more of a thicker coat to cover most of the black. We still want some of that black showing through to show wear and tear and texture, and that's what gives it its realistic look. But the first coat will be the dark gray. We're then going to move on, and you've seen this before. This is the same acrylic craft paint. This is from Hobby Lobby. The name of this is Rainy Day Gray. It is a lighter gray. Not much, but a little bit. You can kind of see the difference there. This will lighten it up a little bit to help it give it some more texture, look, some differences in color to help the eyes kind of focus that it looks more like a concrete texture. And then finally, I ran out of the small bottles of white, but I've got a huge bottle of white. This is Craft Smart. Again, this is from Michael's. This is just plain old white. And so this will be, so like I said, the dark gray is the thickest of the coats, still a dry brush. The Rainy Day Gray is a much less of a thick coat, more of a dry brush, more dry than the previous coat. And then the white is the lightest of all of the dry brushing. It is a lot of paint coming off the brush before we ever put the brush onto our project. Really, the white is going to add some highlights, you're going to accent the curb and the edge of the sidewalk. If you've got imperfection in the sidewalk, it helps to highlight those. Once it's done, it will help the eyes focus into the imperfections and make it look more realistic. It will do that on the brick or the block texture as well. So that's what we're going to be doing. Now for the final touch, and I haven't broken that out yet, but we will, it will be a dark black wash. And that's a little bit of paint, a lot more water, stir it up and make it really thin. And then we're just going to wash, especially like the driveway and the sidewalk or the walkway leading up into the house. Those are going to be washed with that black paint, and then again, everything will be washed with the black paint. I may go a little lighter on the foundation part because we are going to have to put grout in that, and through my experience, we're going to take a wet sponge. Maybe a damp sponge is a better term, but we're going to start wiping a lot of that excess grout out. Well, this is a water-based paint. Irrespective of how long it's been on the project, once you start adding water to it, it has a tendency to start bringing some of that stuff off. So we've got to be very careful in doing that, but what I've seen through experience is it darkens up some of that paint a little bit. It takes maybe the top surface or so off, and so putting a wash is really going to serve no purpose on the foundation that we're going to put grout on. We'll get there in another tutorial, but first, let's get everything, let's talk brushes real quick. I want to do this again step by step, and then we'll paint. Okay, so the first brush I'm going to use for a large surface is a big, very cheap 2-inch brush, probably came from the dollar store. You can see it's well worn and well used, but it's also very soft. And this allows for a larger surface area for some of the bigger sidewalks and the bigger foundation pieces, the driveway and things like that. You'll see that. We have to be very careful because this can hold and then hide a lot of paint. So we gotta, when we say dry brush, we're gonna get a lot of that paint off. So that's the first brush. And then we have a series of other brushes, just various sizes that we will use. Different types and different varieties. Not one is any better than the other, but these are a little bit thicker, a little bit stiffer. This one just needs to be broken in a little bit. And then a really, really soft. And so we will use these to highlight certain areas versus using this big brush. Now we will probably use this big brush for everything on the foundation minus the white. We'll get there. I may even use this for the white on the foundation. We will see. But that's really it. That's what we're going to need. And then I always use a very fancy easel for holding my paints. You guys can find these. We buy our easels at Costco. We also eat off our easels. These are paper plates. And so they're pretty easy to just put a splatter of paint on, and then you've got plenty of room with a dab of paint to also get a lot of that paint off and then start painting. So with that, let me get this set up so you can see, and then we will start painting this project. Okay, we're gonna start with a dark gray, and you'll see I'm just gonna put we're gonna use a lot of this, quite honestly, on this project. So let's start with something about like that. I don't want to go too overboard. And then the brush, essentially what I'm doing is just dabbing it straight into that on all sides, and then bringing it over here and getting some of this off. We're gonna start with our sidewalk, or with our driveway. So we know the front has got to be painted, so you can kind of see, just get it started. Okay, we're gonna let that dry, and then we're gonna come back with some different colors. And while we're waiting on that to dry, we've got a whole bunch of other stuff to paint, so we're just gonna grab this big piece here. We're gonna start up here again. Okay, so that has been sitting out in the sun and is dry. And so now we are ready to disassemble it again and start with our rainy day gray. This is the lighter of the grays. This will also be a much lighter coat, more of a dry brush. So we'll pour less paint than we did with the others. So maybe something like that. That's probably too much, but that's okay. It gives us a good start. And we will start with the curb here. This is going to be a very dry brush. Okay, we're gonna start with the white, just a small amount. And you've got to be very careful with the white or you will absolutely destroy your project. I had some on my hands earlier and I already got it on this, so you got to be incredibly careful. We're gonna start on the side here, just to get some of that off. Okay, so what you're trying to do is just go soft, very soft. Okay, I'm back. I don't know, so what you didn't just see right now was about a 2 to 3 hour intermission. We went to Saturday Easter service here for our church and we just got back. So you'll notice a costume change for me. I'm in a different shirt. And anyway, we're gonna get back started. We've got everything done minus the base and the sidewalk. Okay, I think that's gonna do it for that. So what I wanna do now is let's put it together and see what it looks like with the house. I also wanna put some streaks for tire marks in the driveway and get all that painted. So let's reassemble and come back and take a look and see what's next. Okay, so you can kind of see how it's starting to set up. Obviously, you can't see every bit of it, but you can start to see how it's looking with everything. Now, this is obviously needs to be glued down. I've still got to wash the sidewalk and wash the concrete in both places. We will certainly do that, and I'll do that here in a moment to show you how that works. And then that will then sit and dry. But this is how it's starting to look. And what I thought would be even, better for realism is some tire marks that is coming down from the driveway. And so all we need is just a little bit of black paint. And I mean just a little bit of black paint. I'm gonna move over here just to get a better look. And I kind of want to match it up with the tires coming down through here. So it's kind of right through here and kind of right through there. Pretty close together. And this is going to be just ever so slight. So what I'm doing is I got a lot of paint initially. And then I'm going to take most off. So where it's starting to go real thin on the plate. Okay, and then we just simply come straight down. You want it to be very, very subtle. So a little bit of paint, most of the paint off. And then just kind of go over that just a little bit more. So you see how that's starting to darken up just a little bit. Same thing, a little bit of paint. Well, that's a lot of paint. We don't want that much, so we got to get a lot of that off. And I'm twisting the brush as I'm pushing it down. It's kind of a double motion to get a lot of that off. That should be pretty good. And then right about here, something perhaps like that. So you can kind of see the tire marks then coming out of the driveway for the car. And you just heard Echo. She's playing with probably Libby. And Libby probably had to scold her for something. But that's how that works. And then as we put the wash on here, this may affect this a little bit. We're going to try to avoid it. And if it does affect it, we'll just put it back on later. So that's how that's all looking. We need to wash this, the steps, and everything here. So let me get the wash mixed up, and I'll be right back. Okay, so for the wash, we got everything set up. And again, if the wash messes with the tire marks, we can just simply put them back on. But for the wash, it's a pretty simple process. We're gonna take some of the black acrylic craft paint, put it into the cup, probably about like that. That's quite a bit, actually, probably a lot. And then fill the rest up with water. It's very, very runny. And I usually use tap water, but I just wanted to show you there. So it's about, it's a lot of water to a little bit of paint. And then you just simply mix it up to where you got a wash. And then all we're doing is putting this wash onto this texture. Something about like that. Okay, and then a couple things you can do. You can take a paper towel and just kind of blot a little bit of it. I don't do anything crazy hard. Now this is going to have to dry like this. Okay, so you can see it didn't really mess up the tire marks too bad. It looks pretty good. So we'll keep that just the way it is, and we'll set that aside. That piece is washed and is getting ready to dry. So we just keep doing the same thing. Okay, I think I'm gonna let that dry just the way it is, and then we'll come back and take a look at it and see if there's anything else that we want to add to that to help it look a little more realistic. So So let this all dry. We'll come back and take a look at what it looks like all put together, and we'll talk about what's coming next. Okay, so here's everything sort of dry. It's not completely dry, but it's also dark here now, and it's not possible to put it in the sun when it's dark, so we'll let it sit in the garage this evening and dry. But this is how it's starting to look. This will sit much flatter when it's actually glued down. So I think that'll be a pretty normal spot there. You can see the wash didn't really affect the tire marks too much. That's exactly the, kind of what I wanted to look. I may have to extend them a little further or actually pull the garage probably about like that, just a little bit closer or something like that. So that kind of, sorry, you couldn't see any of that. So that's about how that's looking there. As you get down to a different level, you can kind of see how that's looking. So that's looking pretty good. The house looks pretty good. The concrete is looking pretty good there. We may add another wash to this, depending, just to make it look a little more worn or dated. That should lead right up to the front. And so what you don't see now is grass will come all the way out to probably into here to kind of match. So it's going to be one grass area here, a grass area here up around the house. And then this sidewalk from here should run straight across is kind of the whole area of you get the whole concrete look there. You'll see that better once the grass is on it. The sidewalk obviously is not glued down. That's how it's starting to look as it's glued down. And so that'll certainly look a lot better. But it is starting to come together. And I wanted to give you a look at it, what it looks like all put together. And so now let's talk about what's coming next. Okay, so there you've seen the painting process. It's really pretty easy, just a little bit tedious, a little time consuming. But the dry brushing technique is really the key behind making some of this look incredibly realistic as far as the concrete texture looks. I do all my sidewalks and all my concrete basically the same way. And you got to see that today step by step. So hopefully that helps you in your future projects. So what's coming next then? Well, in the next tutorial, we're going to really focus on getting, this will be completely dry, and we're going to take some green or brown or a combination of some paint with a smaller brush and base, or maybe just a small sponge brush, and we're going to sponge areas that are going to get grass away from some of the concrete, because we did a lot of gray and there's a lot of gray on there. So, I don't want people to be able to see through in the grass and see gray underneath it if we can. So we'll try to cover some of that stuff up with either, you could do it in many ways. You could do it again with black and just kind of cover up some of the gray. You could do it with brown, or you could do it with green. We'll probably do it with green just so it matches some of the grass that we're going to put down. So we're going to do that next. We're also going to put the anti-skid tape down on the road. So we'll get the base itself, the fundamental 1 inch by 2 foot by 2 foot section covered with the road, the anti-skid tape. Then I'll show you how to put that down and adhere it and measure it. We'll get that done, and we'll dirty that up with some sand to where it looks a lot more realistic. And then once that's done, so that'll probably be the next tutorial. It will be the green touch-up paint and putting the road down. It'll be a very simple, straightforward tutorial. On the next part, the part after that, so that would be part 6, and then on to part 7, we're going to then take the foundation and start mixing the grout. I'll show you how to do all of that as we're doing it. Mixing the grout into a paste and then putting the paste on and then letting it cure a little bit and wiping the excess off. We will do all of that in part 7 of this tutorial. Once that's done and out of the way, then really we're left with putting the grass down, hot gluing everything into place as far as the sidewalk, the curbing, and the foundation. And then we'll start looking at placements for street lights, and we'll put some street lights on this, and probably that'll be a tutorial by itself. That'll lead us up to part 8 or part 9. So I'm guessing somewhere around 10 parts of this tutorial to make this incredibly detailed vignette. So we're about halfway through, if that gives you a perspective of where we're at. So hopefully I'll get back to doing one of these videos every week, or maybe every other week is probably a little more realistic with our schedule. Plus we have plenty of time. So we're going to stop this one for today, but like always, if you've liked this video, make sure you click the like button. If you liked seeing Echo, and really Leslie in the video, make sure that you click the like button. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. The channel continues to grow. Certainly helps me out to stay motivated enough to do these videos, and leave comments, ask questions. I try to get to every one of those. A lot of questions I see are coming in are already answered really in the video. So if you were to watch the whole video, some of your questions may already be answered. But nonetheless, if you have a question, reach out and I'll be happy to point you in the right direction. So with that, on the eve of Easter, take care of yourselves. When you wake up tomorrow, hopefully you share the same faith. Tomorrow is an amazing day for us. So take care of yourselves. We'll talk again real soon.